friends, Betty Rage here, your favorite nerdy goth mom, and this is Lashes and Lore. And today, we are trading Cosmic Dread for permanent Gothic moodiness. And by that, I mean a really clingy vampire who owns an entire zip code. Welcome to Ravenloft, where every day is Halloween, and the only thing thicker than the fog is the layer of dread and despair. So forget your basic fantasy kingdom. Here, your problem isn't some random goblin. It's the crushing sense of despair, the psychological games, and the constant feeling like your phone battery is on 1%. Welcome to the realm where the only happy ending is usually just a horrific Tuesday. Or maybe finding matching socks. Seriously, the drama here makes reality TV look like a pleasant therapy session. So let's dive into the world of vampires and werewolves and spooky times. I'm really excited. Okay, let's get into Ravenloft. Oh, and if you're wondering what kind of gothic glamour that I'll be slathering all over my face today, the product details are down in the description below. Because even when you're trapped in the domain of dread, the glam never fades. In fact, it may actually be intensified. Okay, so what exactly is Ravenloft? In work, or maybe school, you know how you sometimes will get caught in that never-ending group project with that one person that does nothing but drain all of the energy from you? Well, imagine that, but the project is just survival, and the energy drainer is an entire sentient land that happens to also have a very charming, very toxic vampire. It's a horror fantasy for Dungeons and Dragons, yes, but its true focus isn't on endless combat or leveling up your heroics. No, babe, it's about pervasive dread, deep-seated mystery, and the gut-wrenching realization that you are probably not the main character. It's less Lord of the Rings and more, I am stuck in a dramatic period piece where the entire cast just wants to lie down. Seriously though, it's a whole aesthetic. Because you see, in Ravenloft, you are not just playing some mighty barbarian or some spell-slinging sorcerer. You are an adventurer, yes, but often you're one hopeful adventurer that has been lured into a land that thrives on despair. And you're not here to save the multiverse. You are just trying to survive a sliver of darkness and maybe, just maybe, get a decent night's sleep. Because once again, the real horror is not just something that you can stab with a sword. This is a common theme recently. It is, however, the creeping feeling of constantly being watched, the whisper of a mist that seemingly sounds like your own insecurities, the impossible architecture of a castle that seems to mock your every step, or the crushing feeling of being utterly helpless against an ancient evil. And you know, speaking of crushing feeling, you get introduced to the Dark Lords and their domains of dread in Ravenloft. It's like your whole life you've been trying to set boundaries and you finally started doing it. And then the boundaries themselves end up being sentient, inescapable walls of fog designed to keep you trapped with your biggest fears. So that's the vibe. That's the look. That's it. Here we go. Now, before we get too lost inside the mists of Barovia, let's pull back the curtain a little bit on how this Gothic masterpiece came to be. Because Ravenloft did not just spring out fully formed from some vampire's fever dream. Although, honestly, it really could have. Gotten a little wild here with the white. Okay. And in my opinion, its origins are actually pretty fascinating for this luscious lore keeper. I'm gonna stop calling myself that. I'm the nerdy goth mom. Okay, this truly iconic setting first emerged in 1983 as an AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons module. It was written by a husband and wife team, Tracy and Laura Hickman. Yes, my darlings, a power couple of horror. We love to see it. Love it. Just let me get my washi tape with my spiders and spider webs, but also daisies. Because we cute and spooky over here. Talk amongst yourselves. Just gonna set my line here. Gotta love a washi tape. So, back to Tracy and Laura Hickman. They apparently created the Ravenloft setting as a Halloween adventure for their own D&D group. It was designed to feature a truly memorable villain who was more than just a monster to be slain. They wanted an epic vampire lord who was not only tragic but manipulative and deeply ingrained into his own land, not just another loot pinata, as it were. And thus, Strahd von Zarovich was born, giving us a villain with more layers than my favorite eyeshadow palette. So what is it that made this original module so groundbreaking? And why did it become such a phenomenon? And the answer is its focus on atmosphere and psychological horror over the typical dungeon crawl. Instead of hack and slash, players were forced to think, to fear, and to unravel a mystery where their choices genuinely matter. And mattered not just for loot, for their very soul. It was a refreshing, terrifying breath of stale, tomb-scented air for D&D at the time. However, the success of that single module was so immense that eventually it led to Ravenloft becoming its own full campaign setting in 1990. It expanded far beyond Barovia and encompassed dozens of other domains of dread, each with its own Dark Lord and horror theme. Yay for us. So while Strahd holds a special place in our dark little hearts, the setting grew into a full universe of misery, proving that one good idea can spawn an entire multiverse of despair. But it was trailblazing. It effectively carved out an entire niche of horror for D&D, showing that heroism isn't just about slaying dragons, but also about trying not to lose your mind in a haunted house. Truly groundbreaking for its time and gives us chills to this day. Now, every good domain of dread has its Dark Lord. And, my babes, the Dark Lord of Barovia is the most problematic fave that you'll ever meet. Strahd von Zarovich. He is not just a vampire. He is the vampire. The gosh darn blueprint of vampires in this multiverse. He's the original heartthrob who peaked his tragic backstory and has been clinging to it for centuries. But honestly, if you think your cousin who won't stop tagging you in MLM posts is annoying, Strahd built an entire prison realm just to stew in his own unrequited love. That is dedication, or maybe just extreme emotional unavailability. And depending on what you think, the answer to that says a lot more about you than you think. Anyways, so who is this eternal sad boy? Strahd was once a mortal human, a brilliant general, and a conqueror. He fought wars, built empires, and basically had it all. But he became obsessed with death, conquering the land of Barovia. And then he fell in love with a woman named Tatyana, which is all cute and sweet and everything, but there's a problem with that. The problem? She was actually interested in his younger brother. His name is Sergei. You know the story. Classic sibling rivalry with a little bit more blood and a lot more eternal damnation. So, on Tatyana and Sergei's wedding day, Strahd made a pact with the dark powers. He slew Sergei, but then chased Tatyana to her death, right off the castle precipice, inadvertently also dooming himself to eternal undeath as a vampire. And in doing so, the land of Barovia became a prison itself, a domain of dread, forever shrouded in mist and ruled by his melancholic tyranny. Talk about a self-sabotage glow up, gray up, doom up, I don't know. Glow down? I don't really know. Anyways, and Barovia is not just a place, it's practically a character. It is deeply connected to Strahd and his tormented soul. This land of perpetual gloom, ancient forest, and shadowed peak is a reflection of his own curse. The mists that surround Barovia act as an impenetrable barrier, trapping anyone who enters and then preventing them from ever leaving. It's like a really aggressive, supernatural bouncer at a club of despair who then also follows you home. Try to leave and you'll find yourself walking for days, only to end up right back where you started, perhaps with even more fog and a whole lot less hope. It's like back in the old days when we would use GPS to get around. If you were in a city and the signal just wasn't right, you would literally do circles and circles around with your GPS just going, rerouting. And that's kind of what I feel like it would be in Barovia. And if you're too young to know what I'm talking about, I'm glad you're here. Mom loves ya. Right, so the sun really never shines here. The air is just heavy with sadness, and any people you may run into are perpetually downtrodden. Their lives are a cycle of misery that fuels Strahd's domain. Every now and then, a ray of hope might flicker, but it's usually just to make the eventual crushing despair even worse or more dramatic. It's Gothic, it's dramatic, and frankly, it's kind of exhausting. And if you think Strahd's obsession with Tatyana ended with her death, then you would be sorely mistaken. This is where the real tragedy and where Strahd's eternal torment truly lie. Due to the nature of her death and the nature of Strahd's transitioning to vampire, Tatyana's soul is forever bound to Barovia, reincarnating again and again and again, almost always as a young, beautiful woman who catches the eye of Strahd. We usually see her as a woman named Irina Kolyana in our current timeline, a local burgomaster's daughter who bears an uncanny resemblance to Strahd's lost love. But here's the tea, babe. She's not Tatyana. She has her own soul, her own memories, her own will, and yet Strahd only sees Tatyana. He is so utterly deluded, Strahd's delulu, by his obsession with Tatyana, that he projects his lost love onto these poor women. I'm mixing a color. 1 second. I don't like how yellow or orange this one is, so I make it less orange. You don't care. Let's keep going. Strahd will charm these reincarnations, stalk them, attempt to woo them, to turn them into his vampiric bride, believing that this time, he can finally possess her. Honestly, though, doesn't sound like a half-bad gig. Not gonna... Yep, okay, moving on. But I mean, it is the ultimate I can change him fallacy, but on like a multi-century supernatural kind of scale. But the dark powers that curse him have a cruel sense of humor. Why is that, you say? Every time he's about to actually claim a Tatyana reincarnation, she somehow dies. Like she'll throw herself off of a cliff. She might cast herself off the castle walls again, or succumb to a sudden illness, or be tragically slain by someone who's trying to save her. The body dies, the soul escapes his grasp, and the cycle begins anew. It's his personal hell, an eternity of chasing a happiness that he can never truly possess, forever reminded of his original sin and his ultimate failure. It's like a supernatural you can look but you can't touch rule, but with way more emotional devastation. In fact, he'll often visit Irina under the guise of the charming Lord Vasily von Holtz.
Nailed it.
He's trying to enchant her, to slowly drink her blood, to turn her into his immortal companion. He'll send her flowers, write her poetry, and even host extravagant dinners. But it's always with an undying, possessive glint in his eyes. And the Barovian people, out of a fear for their own lives and a grim understanding of the cycle, often view Irina as a walking death sentence, a magnet for Strahd's attention. And that threatens everyone around her. It's a truly awful predicament. Eternally pursued, never truly safe, destined to die just to be reborn for a vampire's torment. I don't know, maybe it's like being perpetually stuck in the dating pool with someone who refuses to take a hint, and the stakes are high, your soul. So in Ravenloft, especially in Barovia, it's not just about fighting monsters. It's also about navigating the psychological torment that's being inflicted by one single, powerful, and deeply, deeply troubled individual whose love is literally a death curse. And trust me, babe, he absolutely thinks that he is the hero of his own story. He's like that politician who writes about his own journey and conveniently leaves out all the problematic parts, especially the parts where he is the villain. Every good Gothic horror story has to have a supporting cast of creepy crawlies, right? And Ravenloft delivers. These are not just random monsters. They are often twisted reflections of the Dark Lord's despair, or things that just thrive on the overwhelming melancholy of the land. The most common, friendly faces that you will meet in Barovia are vampire spawn. These are the unfortunate souls bitten by vampires, usually Strahd because, he's just that guy. They're not quite fully turned. They are effectively his thralls, forced to do his bidding. And let me tell you, they're pretty miserable about it. Think of them as perpetually stressed out assistants of the Gothic underworld. They are weaker than a full vampire, but still formidable, and often used as cannon fodder or just to annoy adventurers. Then we have werewolves. Barovia's forests are homes to packs of these. And unlike some D&D settings, they're not always raging lunatics. Some are intelligent, tribal, and even capable of speech, though they often serve Strahd or prey on anyone who's just foolish enough to wander into their territory. Imagine a pack of very grumpy, very furry locals who just prefer you were not on their lawn, especially if you look like a tasty snack. And who doesn't? But speaking of creepy locals, let's not forget the Vistani. These are nomadic people, often with a mysterious aura, and they travel through the mists of Ravenloft. They have unique magical abilities and a knack for prophecy, and they are generally protected by Strahd. So you might actually find a friendly face, or one who won't at least immediately try to kill you. They're often portrayed as neutral, sometimes deceptive, but always integral to the mysterious heart of Ravenloft. Just think of them as the enigmatic fortune tellers who know all the local gossip. And I don't know, maybe even who's sleeping with who over at the castle. But, the true terrors in Ravenloft aren't just teeth and claws. They are the psychological horrors. The mists themselves are a living entity, constantly shifting, disorienting, and feeding into the despair. You might encounter ghosts and specters born from the tragedy of the land, driven by unresolved torment, like the specter of a broken-hearted lover, or the wailing spirit of a child, or perhaps a wraith, a soul so evil it becomes a hole in reality. It's less about jump scare and more about the slow, creeping dread of watching your own will erode slowly. And for all the monsters in Ravenloft, sometimes the one whispering in your head is the most terrifying one, reminding you of all your poor life choices and how you even got to Ravenloft to begin with. And finally, the land itself. Seriously, Barovia is cursed. The very ground, the trees, the wind, it all conspires to keep you trapped and miserable. The weather is oppressive. The roads are treacherous, and every single shadow feels like it's moving and is potentially a threat. It's like being stuck in a perpetual bad mood, but the bad mood wants to eat you. It is the ultimate hostile environment. It's designed to break even the strongest of wills. Good luck finding a way out, let alone a Wi-Fi signal. All right, my creepy little cuties out there, let's talk about some other gems that you may encounter if you wander beyond the village proper, because Barovia is full of delightful little surprises designed to make you question every life choice. First, if you ever stumble upon a quaint little gingerbread house in the woods, be warned, it might be Bone Grinder Mill, home to the night hags. These aren't your typical ugly witches. They are terrifying creatures who steal the nightmares of children, and they turn them into a sickening pastry called dream pastries, and they feed on hope. They appear as sweet little old ladies, but trust me, their hospitality comes with a very literal, soul-crushing price. It's basically Grandma's house if Grandma was running a pyramid scheme based on nightmares. Then we have Baba Lysaga. And if you have trouble pronouncing Baba Lysaga, then you can just say Baba Lasagna, like I do. She is a truly ancient and disturbing hag who lives in a swamp and has a truly unhealthy obsession with Strahd. She believes that she is his true mother. Bless her. She rides around in a giant animated skull and has a creepy living hut that she lives in that walks around on chicken legs. Can't make this shit up. Actually, somebody did make this shit up. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyways, she's like that overbearing relative that just won't let go. Except she also commands a swarm of insects and could rip you apart with her mind. Talk about mother-son drama, but with more swamp gas and ancient magic. And if you're brave or foolish enough to visit Krex, a secluded monastery town, you might encounter the mongrel folk. These are deformed, desperate people, a tragic reflection of the madness of the land, often trying to hide their mutations or seeking a cure that never comes. Their plight is a stark reminder that in Ravenloft, even the survivors are often broken. And before you ever get to any of these places, many adventurers start their journey in the Death House, which is less a house and more of a psychological gauntlet. It's kind of designed to introduce you to Barovia's true nature. It's a haunted house that literally tries to kill you, complete with illusions, traps, and a creeping sense of dread. It's the ultimate welcome wagon.
From hell.
A perfect primer for why you should have just stayed home and watched Netflix. So, after all this talk of perpetual despair, clingy vampires, and a sentient bog, you might be asking, why would anyone choose to dive into this Gothic dumpster fire? And that is part of the horrifying appeal of Ravenloft, where it's once again not about being a superhero. It's about the allure of testing your limits against overwhelming odds. There's a morbid fascination in glimpsing the true darkness and seeing if your resolve can survive a really bad day. It's the thrill of the agonizing crawl, the slow, creeping dread as you navigate a world that was literally designed to break you, knowing that every revelation chips away at your hopeful disposition. So why do we flirt with Gothic annihilation? Because it makes your last awkward family dinner seem downright pleasant. And sometimes you get really cool outfit ideas from the ghosts. Plus, it gives us something to gossip about, besides who's actually living in that creepy old house. The satisfaction in Ravenloft isn't scoring a critical hit on some monster. No, babe. It's the sheer audacious act of enduring. It's in the suffocating atmosphere, the desperate puzzle solving, the chilling revelation that often your greatest enemy is your own creeping dread. It's the raw fear of being cornered, of your own will bending under pressure. It's the unique thrill of just barely making it out, not necessarily winning anything beyond another terrifying sunrise. You might not conquer the Dark Lord, but you'll certainly have a story to tell. We love a good story, even if it ends with us needing a full psychiatric evaluation. And if you're a GM that's running Ravenloft, it's about setting a mood, letting the despair slowly seep in, and using Strahd's cunning to really mess with your players' heads. Don't just jump scare, subtly erode their will to live, making them question their choices, their alliances, and even their very purpose. The game mechanics often reinforce this hopelessness. Sometimes even a long rest in Barovia isn't as refreshing as it should be. You might even find yourself more exhausted the next day. It truly is a masterclass in psychological horror, making it one of the most beloved settings despite its bleakness. So here's our final look. I'm ready for Barovia. Probably not, actually, though. So there you have it, my little glitter goblins. Ravenloft, where monsters are real, your sanity is optional, and the only certainty is that your Gothic romance novel just turned into a Gothic nightmare. And if you just can't get enough of TTRPGs that thrive on horror, you should check out this video I did here on Call of Cthulhu. I'm Betty Rage, your favorite nerdy goth mom, and this is Lashes and Lore, where the lore is deep, the eyeliner is deeper, and we're all just trying to survive the vibe. Be good to each other, love each other, make good choices, and as always, free mom hugs from me to you. Bye. See you next time.